Welcome, everybody. We're just giving everybody a little bit of time to kind of trickle in, but we are going to be respectful of everybody's time. We will finish on time. And if for some reason we do decide to hang out, and it'll be more as a conversation, not that we haven't covered all the content. Really excited to have everybody here. Welcome everybody to our meetup. And today's meetup is put on by the Doug Mentorship group or committee. And we are part of a larger organization known as Doug, the Dynamics User Group. And it is all about community. And this topic that we're sharing about mentorship, or whether it's something about a particular Microsoft Dynamics product or platform, if it's about diversity, if it's about being involved in technology by region, all of these are part of our community, part of the forums, part of the meetups that we have available to us through this group. Now, you can find out about Dynamics User Group through dynamicsusergroup.com. It doesn't matter what we're doing, whether it is this meetup or it's the event that we all just, not all, a lot of us attended. I'm sorry if you didn't get to make it to the DynamicsCon event in Chicago last week. It was fabulous. They have announced the location for next year, which is Las Vegas. So mark your calendar for the month of May and that information. But it doesn't matter whether we're meeting in person, we're meeting on a meetup, or we're engaging in the forum. It's all about everybody respecting everybody else. And that's what we're expecting here in this meetup. We've never had problems. If anybody, Lokesh, if you're still on here, if anybody sees anybody join, because we did have to put this up on the meetup, that maybe shouldn't be here then, or is doing anything not within the rules of engagement, let's get them out of the group, okay? So I talked a little bit about the groups and the different programs that we have. So whether it's Business Central, CE, or Finance and Supply Chain, Power Platform, Dynamics GP still, whether it's a forum or a webinar or a meetup or a conference, you name it, Doug is probably involved in getting that information out there and sharing it. So again, if you're interested, you can use that QR code and that'll take you right to Dynamics User Group. Again, no charge for anything except for our big conference, which is that DynamicsCon that we just have. Even the regionals are free. I mean, now you got to pay for your hotel or your travel to get there. But again, it's all about sharing information in the community. So when I talk about regionals, we do have some coming up in North America, in Canada, the Rocky Mountain area, the Ohio Valley, Texas, and the Southeast. There are more being scheduled. And what's really cool is the international. So we have West Africa, East Africa, Europe. Rory, we'll have to get something down in your area there. But this isn't Dynamics User Group management doing this. These are users who are making this happen with the help of Dynamics User Group. So if you haven't seen a regional in your area, or whether it's international or here in the States, and you think you'd be interested in making something like this happen, get involved, see what it's all about, and maybe next year we'll see something that you've planned up here. So why are we here today? We're here about the mentor group, and we're talking about mentoring. Now, our topic today is not specifically about mentoring, but whether you're a mentor or a mentee, the topics that we cover in these meetups should be of interest to you. So it's about personal and professional development. So when we talk about mentoring, I'm not going to read all of these points up here. This deck, I believe we make this deck available as well as the recording. But what is really important to understand is that it is involving someone with experience in an area that they are willing to share, and someone who's looking for expertise or advice in that area. Now, when we talk about this mentoring group, we are looking at people who are looking to be mentored, and we're looking for mentors in the Dynamics platform. So we are looking for people who either are already working in one of those areas that we've mentioned we're so involved with in Doug, or are interested in becoming involved in. So, for example, a recent grad or someone who is making a career change. Now, even though we're talking about being in the Dynamics community, this is not technical mentoring. This is mentoring about those professional skills, those personal skills, helping you with decision making, anything that you would need other than those hard technical skills to make you successful in our Dynamics community of products. So the benefits are that not only will the mentee be learning from the mentor in all those areas that I just described, but interestingly enough, I will tell you, as having been a mentor in the past, and I think anyone who has been will agree, we're going to learn also. So it's about being involved and learning from each other, gaining knowledge, gaining skills. Again, I'm not going to go through a lot of detail here. If you want the slide deck, it will be available. This is kind of what I covered with, again, those soft skills that we would be concentrating on. So as a member of the mentorship committee, we are looking for mentors and we are looking for mentees. And at the end, I will share with you how you can get more information about getting involved in that way. But enough about all of the housekeeping. Let's get going on what our topic is today, which is evaluating careers in the D365 space, right? So what are the trends and the skills that are needed to prepare you to be, as I would like to say, a long-term resident in this community or in this space? So I'm your facilitator today. And I'm just going to share very quickly. Again, I'm part of the mentorship committee and I'm with MGC Group. I'm an independent consultant and I focus on the Business Central space. And I would consider myself a functional consultant. And you'll understand why that's going to be important as we move along with our topics. So let me introduce to you our panelists. And I have asked for pronunciation of names, and I'm still probably going to do something not quite right, but I'm going to do my best. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start, this is in no particular order, with Sevi Poblete. And he is Director of Strategic Partnerships. Then I'm going to move on to Tanya and Rory. So Sevi, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're excited to be part of this presentation today?
Absolutely. Thank you, Cynthia. So hi, everyone. My name is Sevi. I do actually notice a few names here who are joining that are familiar part of TechWin as well. But on my end, I run a boutique recruiting firm focused around Dynamics. Been doing it for around 10 years, focused around ERP and CRM. Within the community, I'm also a meetup leader for our New York City Power Platform and D365 meetup group. We started 3 months ago. So if you're ever in the area and want to join, we do virtual and in-person meetings. I also volunteer as a career advocate for the Tech Fluent group as well. So that's a little bit about myself. I'm always happy to, and really excited to talk a little more about some of the conversation topics we have going on for this panel.
Excellent. So now we're going to move to Tanya Tygeson. And Tanya is Senior Director at SS&C Technologies, involved in the Power Platform and I guess what, Dynamics 365, but I'll let you tell a little bit more about that.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you for having me today. It's a great honor to be on the panel today and great group of folks here. So as you said, Tanya Tygeson, I work for a global fintech company called SS&C Technologies. We're a small company of 27,000 people worldwide. I work in one division that is just in the Microsoft Dynamics and Power Platform. All of our clients' focus is wealth and asset management, sort of trust companies and so on. So we're very, very niche. I just wanted to point that out because we're going to talk about a broad topic of dynamics, but there's a lot of niche areas that you can land in and have a full career. So I just wanted to point that out. I have been in the Microsoft space for a very long time. We're talking decades now. And like the slide says, I definitely would say I'm a lifelong learner. I'm constantly trying to see what's around the corner and help coach my teams and figure out how to get them around the corner as well in their next career move. So I love the group, the Doug group. I actually co-host a group here in Toronto. So if you're coming to the Toronto event in June, I will definitely be there. So please come and say hi. I got my new pin at the Doug Chicago conference last week. So I've got my leaders pin. So look for my pin if you're coming up to Toronto. But thanks for having me, Cynthia.
You reminded me I forgot to get my pin. Now what am I going to do? Okay. Oh, well. All right. I'll have to go back. Yeah, I forgot to go get it. So busy. All right. So last but not least, and you notice we have a nice diversity here amongst our panelists. So we have Rory. Okay, Dahuda. Close enough, right, Rory?
That's
okay.
Very, very close.
Okay, excellent. So Rory is director and founder of The Good Talent. And again, we seem to have a lot of experience here. And so I'm going to let Rory tell you a little bit about himself.
Yeah, thanks, Cynthia. So my name is Rory Dahuda. My company's name is The Good Talent because that's what my surname means in English. But I thought I'd make it easier for people to pronounce by translating it into English. I've been in recruitment for 13 years, been placing ERP and CRM professionals over 3 continents. I'm from the Netherlands, lived in Australia for 8 years, and now I'm doing the same thing, but moved to the Microsoft Dynamics ecosystem here in the US. I run like Savi. I run my own shop as well, and when I joined the ecosystem, I noticed that there's because I've been comparing with other ERP and CRM systems as well and ecosystems. It's very collaborative in the Microsoft Dynamics ecosystem. There's a lot of people from other organizations that you might view as competitors. They're supporting you, and Doug is a great example of that. Like there's people that do the same for different companies that want to help each other out, and not even getting paid for that. So that's great, and that's what I wanted to do as well, which is why I'm here today.
Awesome. It's interesting what you just said made me think about if I'm making a decision of where I want to invest my history so that my future would have the best positive impact, I probably want to do that in a community, not somewhere where everything is divisive. So where it would be easier for me, if it was time for me to move on, to find another place to move on. So when we talk about this community, that's really what we have, right? So that's kind of already, if not anything, if I were a mentor to say to somebody, get yourself established in a particular area of expertise or a community or a product platform where it's going to be easier for you to grow. Well, our community does that for us. That was just kind of like a little aha moment of my own.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's true, but I guess I never thought of it that way. I just pulled something, and I will admit I used ChatGPT to help me with this. But I said, okay, well, like based on this topic that we have today, what are some just general trends and insights? And we could pick these apart. You know, you can talk to anybody out there. You could talk to Rory, Sevi, and Tanya and myself and probably get varying opinions on these, but there's a talent shortage. Okay, there's a lot of people looking for work, but there's also a talent shortage. And a lot of people are telling us that today in the D365 space, it's the largest gap amongst the major ERP and CRM platforms. I don't know if I agree with that because I don't know enough about the others. But the other thing that's kind of interesting, I think the demand is changing a little bit. We're going to talk about that because the way our products are being designed and the way our products are moving forward, we're trying to put more power into the user's hands and greater flexibility for reporting in the user's hands. So a lot of the stuff that had to be done by those developer magicians in the background is now being taken care of by, yes, a little more technically adept end users, but end users and functional as not so much development. The other thing we're looking at is AI and Copilot. Everybody jokes you can't be on anything related to Microsoft and or any technology and not hear about AI and of course Copilot in our Microsoft environments. And again, how is that not just impacting the functional user or the functional consultant, but how does that impact development? And does it impact development? And when we look at industry specific expertise, you heard Tanya mention that her organization is niche. Okay, that doesn't mean that someone who didn't start outside of that niche can't work their way into that niche. And then the question is, what niche are we talking about? Are we talking about the financial niche, or are we talking about the technology niche? All right, well, the same thing applies whether you would be going to a partner or other end users. I don't think it matters, but how do you take your expertise and your soft skills and turn that into premium compensation? And then the other thing that we're talking about is the impact of remote work. We talked about some of these events. We do things virtually, we do things in person. Well, work is the same way. And I'll tell you what, I have seen it for sure. It increases the competition for the positions, because if hybrid or remote work is possible, all of a sudden, whether Rory's in Costa Rica and Sevi's in Manhattan and Tanya's in Toronto and I'm in Cleveland, we could all be working on the same project, depending on which country it's in. All right. But the point here is that it broadens the pool. So how do I stay competitive, and how does that cause me to look at my future differently, or does it? Because maybe now I just have more opportunities. So let's kind of start with what I would say is probably the hottest social media, whatever topic, and that's AI. Got to get it out of the way, right? Let's just talk about AI and get it out of the way. You're going to notice this is a little informal in the way we're doing it. We don't have super fancy slides here. We're going to go through, and I've targeted these questions to each one of our panelists. But I'd also like, if anyone has questions, go ahead and raise your hand. And I'm going to try to, as moderator, also kind of keep track here. And again, I noticed that we have mentees as well as mentors attending, and I think this applies to everybody. So let's talk about AI's impact. And when we talk about this stuff, I think we all agree we're probably limiting to like the next 5 years on just about everything, right? You can't really think farther than that. I mean, even that's a long time in technology, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so enough about me talking. All right, so why is that? Oh, because I'm not on the right screen. All right, so we're going to go with Rory first. So Rory, with this rise of AI, how will the role and demand for developers change in the next 5 years? I already kind of mentioned, hey, a lot of functional stuff now, moving it away from the developer. What do we need to worry about as a developer? Or do we?
Yeah, you touched on it already. I will try and give the short answer. I actually did a podcast recording with the development manager of the TM group, Marcel Chabot, who actually encouraged his daughter to watch this as well. So maybe she's on here as well.
I'm
just this question was 35 minutes of talking. So I'm going to
try you don't have that long, Rory.
No, I'll do the condensed version. What you said, Cynthia, is very correct. AI will allow developers to do a bulk of the work, or they will do bulk of the work for the developers already. The job will shift a bit more to, if the easy stuff is done and the big volume work is done, the developers will focus more on the bigger complex questions and challenges, more quality checks. But indeed, what you said as well, if you're working on the more complex items, you have to have a bigger understanding of the impact on the business, the higher level overview you need to have. So the skill set will change a little bit. Instead of being the person that's sitting in the corner just coding, you need to actually, it will move in the next few years to a role where you need to engage other people in the business, have conversations, understand functional requirements as well. And that's a big shift in itself. Also, if you're not using AI or leveraging AI in your work as a developer, you're gonna be falling behind, because this is where everything is moving towards. People are getting more, they're getting quicker, more efficient by leveraging AI. I see employers demanding this as a skill set in the next few months already. You'll see job posts up when people are hiring for developers. They will ask, "What's your experience with AI?" So if you're not playing around with ChatGPT or Copilot or any other AI tool, just start playing with it and learn how to leverage it in your day job as well.
When it comes to the demand in the next 5 years, you've mentioned they're going to be questioning whether you have AI experience.
Yes.
How would you expect someone to kind of fill that gap of not having that functional experience? So they're in their organization. Is it a matter of reaching out to the functional consultants and asking to piggyback, or can you, I mean, just a quick thought on how you would maybe get that skill? I know I didn't prep you for this one, but
No. That's I'm just thinking how that would go. I think it will be a combination of people new to the industry. It will I think when companies are looking for, say, graduates, they will look for the soft skill already. So if the work experience isn't there yet, companies will look for this soft skill. Does this person have these skill sets of asking questions,
Perfect.
listening? If it's someone who's already in a developer role, how can they learn it? That's a good question. I think it would be start working closely with functional consultants, business analysts, maybe even look into learning how to be a business analyst. I'm thinking out loud right now, but
yeah, no, that's perfect.
that's all about understanding business processes, asking the right questions, understanding, and that will be the skill set that will be added to the development job.
Right. So you mentioned that's a good way to kind of wrap this question. You've got those technical, that logical brain to do that development, but we're now asking for more soft skills to, ask questions properly, be able to listen, and then also to apply that logical brain or that, I think of it as a language-oriented brain to business process, right?
Yes.
And so I actually think developers can have a leg up on some functional consultants, because sometimes for functional consultants, that logical process can be difficult. And a developer, a logical process is just part of how they work. One
Yeah.
note I want to add, I don't see us, though, going back to the consultant/developer. I still think you're going to have those two distinct areas of primary expertise, but now that understanding needs to bleed over one to the other a little bit more,
Yes.
correct? Okay,
Correct.
perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, because I don't think that was necessarily a good thing when
Yeah.
people tried to be everything to everybody.
No,
Okay,
that's not going to
awesome.
work.
So we've talked about continuous learning for these developers, right? So a little bit of, okay, what do you need to have coming in new? And i.e., you've been a developer for a while, how do you have this learning to kind of meet this new need? So it applies to everybody, not just developers. How are we going to stay relevant with all of this stuff going on? For Tanya, for a technical implementer, right? So somebody who's a little more involved functionally, what was we do to remain relevant and valuable? Who wrote this question in our field, right?
Well, I think the key in this day and age is you have to become a lifelong learner. You cannot expect to learn once and never have to refresh your skills. And the pace of change is happening at lightning speed now. And so what you learned even a year ago, you have to continually refresh and evolve and skill up all the time. I think also you have to learn to be adaptable more and more in your role. And like I know, having worked for this firm for a long time, my role has evolved and changed so many times that you just need to be open to change, and you need to be open to being an adaptable person in your role, which actually is quite a nice thing to have, because you get that change that you want. You're not stuck in a lane in a growth oriented firm. And I would say that's what you want to be looking for, is a growth oriented firm to work for. But also I think another tenet would be, and Rory alluded to it, is cross-functional collaboration. Like if you don't know something, reach over the aisle, or just don't be shy to collaborate with other people in your teams and in your organization. And if you can't find that person in your organization, then join a mentorship program. Like, there are other places to get the cross-functional collaboration. I'd say, like I mentioned, you have to be a lifelong learner, but I think you have to stay up on current tools and trends. You have to, if you're looking at AI and you're looking at trying to focus your career on AI, you have to be testing the tools all the time. You can download free tools. You can test things in GitHub or up in Azure or whatnot. So sometimes that leads to certification, which is never a bad thing. I think one of your early points was, how do you learn it? Microsoft Learn is a great free resource if you want to stay in the Microsoft space, but YouTube University and Google University, all these other, online tools, there's tons of free stuff available to be able to stay current with current trends and what's around the corner. I don't think that we can see 5 years out right now. It's just changing too much. But and then I think you mentioned it too, is in order to be relevant, you need to get comfortable with low code or no code kind of technology and how to integrate it. Because in my world, there's no such thing as a silo product. You have to see how it touches other products in that client's ecosystem or in that world. So to be able to understand just how do we bridge applications, and AI is going to obviously lead the charge on that one. And then, if you are in the AI space, I think it goes without saying that you also need to follow a path towards responsible AI. So you can't just kind of, bolt things together. You really need to dig under the hood to understand, like in my world, in financial services, that's in other spaces too. There's so much compliance that we have to look at first, and we have to look at where's the data stored and where's the prompt stored, and little nuances like that you need to kind of get there in your knowledge to understand it. Nobody's expecting anybody to be an expert out of the gates. But there are areas that you have to be aware of to remain relevant and to lead the charge and to lead a team or to share that with your clients and whatnot. And then I think the last thing I'd say is, again, Rory mentioned, like, if you're hiring new grads, there's an expectation with new grads, you're not going to have all the business acumen. You might have other talents that you can bring to the team. And I would say the biggest talent of anything is willingness to learn, willingness to be a team player. And I know that sounds kind of corny, but it's so incredibly important that if you have a culture of help, and I want the whole team to rise up, you develop that culture and you protect it fiercely. Like I protect that culture with my team very fiercely to make sure that everybody is contributing to the well-being of our organization, and specifically to our team, because we do have hybrid, we do have remote workers, and it's even more challenging to have that collaboration. So I think the last point I would make there would be just, you need to have a bridge. So if you're technical, you need to be able to bridge and speak end user language. If you're an end user, you need to be able to have a business language that you speak, that you can translate things. So you have to be able to translate. I always say that we always have to be bilingual. So we have to be able to speak common language and then some sort of like bridge language to the other groups. So I hope that makes sense.
I think those were all great points. I have a question for you. You talk about constant learning.
Yeah.
Are you expecting that out of your 60-hour work week, or whatever it ends up being, let's pretend it's 38 hour work week, that the organization you work for is going to allow you to take 2 hours a week towards that learning? Or
I beg my teams to do that. I beg them to set aside time every week. Doesn't have to be 2 hours, because nobody has 2 hours these days.
Right.
However, the learning curve is using AI to be more efficient in your work. Don't spend hours looking for a document when you can have an AI tool help you find it, because there are stats on how we waste our time. We can reclaim that time so that we do have that time for learning. And I, as a hiring manager, I always hope that my teams have the time to spend on learning, because it drives our business, right? I need them to come up the curve. And I certainly spend time learning. Like, I'm on AI courses until the cows come home. So, I, as an organization that I work for, we absolutely encourage learning. We have an incredible learning and development organization here that throws a lot of content at us all the time. So if I were in the job market looking for that, that would be one of my first questions: is how are you going to support me and grow my career and contribute to this team? And if there is no plan of attack for that with the learning program, I'd say there's probably a better one around the corner, right?
Right. I was just going to say, so it goes back to that culture that you mentioned, right? A culture of learning, and learning is part of your job.
Absolutely.
And, and I think sometimes we forget that. We get so down in the weeds of doing this that we're sitting there saying there's got to be a better way. Maybe it's time to start looking at what that better way might be. And that's part of that learning.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you. Very good answer. Appreciate it. Anybody have any questions at this point in time? Got a lot more questions to go through, but want to make sure if anyone has any questions. Right. All right. Let's talk about that. Okay, I'm just getting started. Right. So we've kind of, we've talked about both, recent grads. And when I talk here about grads, it doesn't have to be the grad that throws the hat in the air. Right? It could be a grad of a technical program. It could be a grad of an internal program. It could be a grad of a technical mentorship program. We're talking about someone who's early in their career with Dynamics, maybe making a change from something else, or starting out with, again, you're just out of university. So Sevi, thank you for waiting. So for someone who's early in their Dynamics career, how do you build credibility and stand out? Like, okay, so you heard some people say, I've been doing this for 20 plus years. You can't say that. And by the way, that doesn't automatically build credibility either, by the way, just because somebody's been doing something for a long time. So, Sevi, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think when it comes to standing out and like building credibility in your own organization, right? It's doing the small things really well. So if your manager tells you that you need to do a project, you get it done on time and you do it well and ask thoughtful questions. But another way to think about building credibility is your digital footprint. And as a recruiter myself, I do want to take time to engage with other people within the community. I think two people that do a really great job at this is Griffin Lickfelt. He hosts his own YouTube series of interviewing career experts and sharing what he's learned throughout his day job as well. And from that point of view, if you're able to share what you're learning online as a candidate and you're, let's say, exploring job opportunities, every hiring manager that I've spoken with, I've always asked, like, does it matter what you post on LinkedIn? Minimally, they want someone who says who they are and like what their resume says matches up to their LinkedIn page. But if you are engaging and posting about what you're learning or engaging with others in the Dynamics community, that I wouldn't say gives you a leg up, but it does put a face to the name if you are applying to jobs. I was a scenario where this actually happened was there was this individual that I was mentoring at the Tech Fluent cohort, this most recent one, and he started being active on LinkedIn, posting about his learnings, also engaging with different hiring managers directly on LinkedIn, and it helped him stand out across that pool of resumes that were applying for that job and led him to getting a few interviews and actually getting that job. So I think especially if you are in that job search mode, different ways to stand out, which include posting about like the subject matter that you are learning to get more experience in, does go a long way. Being consistent about it as well. Now, as far as like networking and building credibility and standing out in that way, those virtual meetup groups or your local meetup groups, it's a great way to once again put a face to the name. Just making sure that people know who you are. You kind of saw it last week at DynamicsCon. A lot of these people are meeting for the first time in person, but they've also been able to communicate with each other online as well. So I think that does do a lot of goodwill for yourself if you are trying to build credibility in that sense.
Feel like you know the person, even if you haven't met them, right? I mean, like I saw Sevi and we never met in person, and it was like, hey, hi, how you, and it was like, and I'm like, oh, wow, I never really met this guy before in person, but I felt like I knew him. So what I'm hearing you say is you increase your credibility when you're willing to put yourself out there. Because that's what you're doing, right? So it's like shows confidence, I think, right? Helps build it builds your confidence too, because you're getting practice putting yourself out there. Other than LinkedIn, is there anything other than LinkedIn in the user groups? I mean, what else could you do? I know. I just feel like LinkedIn is the professional's Facebook, right?
Right now, I think so. I mean, there are other forums, new ones that are coming up. One is called Substack.
I've seen stuff in Substack.
Choosing to create, a new newsletter. It is just more so. I think we're seeing a lot of, and I'm pretty bullish on LinkedIn. It's part of my workflow, but I would say that as far as building community, that's a great place to start. I'm not saying that you need to be like a LinkedIn guru and post all the time. That's not what I'm saying at all. But a little does go a long way if you are trying to network within the community, and then obviously attending these meetup sessions as well.
And if anyone wants to do a good AI exercise, use AI to help them put together a LinkedIn profile.
Absolutely.
What's interesting is there was something going around that said, ask AI to write a profile of you based on your chats. And I am going to Copenhagen this June, and I also use ChatGPT for a lot of work stuff. Well, I had put some stuff in there about Copenhagen and architecture and style and that kind of thing. And when I asked it to do that, it pulled out all kinds of stuff, and most of the stuff was about Business Central and my interaction in that community. But it also said that I do things with style and et cetera, et cetera. So I saw it putting in pieces from those other chats. So if you're using ChatGPT a lot to do things related to work, et cetera, it's just a little interesting exercise I thought I'd share. Ask ChatGPT to write a LinkedIn profile based on your chats. Be interesting what you see. But again, it's a way to incorporate learning as well as taking things to that next step. Because one of the things that I don't like personally is when I go to someone's LinkedIn and I have no idea what they do, even though they spent 50 words telling me what they did. So make sure your messaging out there makes sense, right, to how you're trying to present yourself. Sevi, Rory, and Tanya, do you find the same thing sometimes? Like it's too salesy, it doesn't really tell me what the person does.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think there's all qualities out there. I do have one other comment on the how to stand out, and this is more because we're back in, in a post-COVID world, is the in-person meetings that are happening more and more. And I was at a conference called Future Proof, which is a great kind of future-looking technology conference. It is kind of focused on the wealth management space, but it's kind of broad-based as well. The most impressive people that I met there were students. So it's a conference in California in Huntington Beach. There were students from UCLA and San Diego. They were walking around with their paper resumes, which is very old school. They were coming to the booths and asking the booths if there was a senior person they could speak to at the booth that they would like to talk about what job opportunities or some coaching that they could have while they were there. And it was very impressive. And I thought, conferences are giving students free passes more and more to attend the conferences, at least in my space. And I think it's a great opportunity to get that face time. Like Sevi was saying, you want to remember, you want to stand out somehow. And if you do it online, fantastic. But if you have an opportunity that's easy to get to, then I would take advantage of it and just be brave. Just be brave. There's no harm in asking questions. To your point earlier, everybody wants to help the next person, right? Like everybody wants to say, I got you to a point B. Maybe I didn't get you the job, but I can introduce you. So that's what stood out for me at some of the live conferences I've been attending, is just students making the rounds. I thought it was great.
Well, I had somebody say to me, send an email rather than text. And I was like, how about write something and put it in the snail mail instead of an email, right?
Yeah.
Anything just like a thank you or whatever, anything to stand out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's marketing. You're marketing yourself, right? You're selling yourself. So all of this takes like a good mindset. If you're looking at making a change, whether it's you're making a change because you're driven to, because your role is changing because of AI, or you're looking to make a transition to a different area or a different company, you kind of have to have this positive forward thinking or growth mindset. And you can't just think that way when things are like looking down and you decide you want to make a change, right? You kind of have to have this mindset all the time. So Tanya, what does it mean to have that growth mindset? And why do you think it's so important in the hiring process?
It's very important in the hiring process, period, just because it shows your potential employer that you're adaptable. And like I said earlier, you need to be adaptable in today's technology space. And I'm assuming this is all about, I want to work in a SaaS-based or AI-focused company. So you just have to be adaptable. And so what I would look for is like trying to figure out like how fast can that person learn. I'm not necessarily looking for that you have every skill that we need, but I want to see that you are malleable enough or open to learning, and you've presented that, like to Sevi's point, is you've presented it somewhere that I can reference and say, show me how your growth trajectory is with your learning. So I think having a growth mindset is really important. And I think also what's truly important is that in order to grow, you need to be open to feedback, and you cannot get defensive about it if it's done in the right way. And I think that if you have a manager that is not forthcoming, then get some peer feedback. It doesn't matter where the feedback comes from, but just get feedback so that you don't have blinders on to your own, VIP status, but, get the feedback, close the gap, be proactive in trying to close that gap. If there is a gap, we all have a gap. None of us can stay ahead as fast paced as things are right now. So having that concept in your head of, okay, I've got to keep learning. I've got to get good feedback. I've got to action the feedback. And then I've got to go back to Sevi's point, is then I have to document my growth, right? Like make sure that you're documenting. And I always tell my team, I can't remember when our annual reviews come around, I cannot possibly remember all the great stuff you've done. Write it down, put it into something. I'm saying write it down, put it somewhere that you can bring it to me and say, look at all this great stuff I've done. I call it a glory file or something like that. Like, honestly, just show me how great you are. I know you're great, but I need to back it up with proof so that when I go to, allocate, it's not me just guessing what you've done. So I think that kind of shows to me not only somebody that cares about their growth, but also has closed those gaps, if there are any gaps, because that list should be really long in a year, right? There should be some pretty good content in there. So, and I think the biggest thing, to take away is it's okay to fail. It's okay to clobber something and go left when you should have gone right. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. And I think that we need to have a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for?
Give
Big
grace.
shoulder pads or something like,
Oh, yeah.
like I need to be able to move past it, and it's not a collateral damage in my world. Like, to be able to get back up, don't panic, move on, kind of just growth from the failure. Like, the failure in life is actually incredible opportunity for you to actually figure out, to assess what you did, how would you do it differently, and then just don't just show up and do your job. Be ready to actually help propel the team forward.
If I didn't fail at the thing that I did 21 years ago, I wouldn't have spent 20 years doing this thing that I love.
Yeah.
All right. But it's always that I think one of the things I'm getting from you is kind of what I was leading into, which is this isn't okay, now I want a new position, I'm going to start doing this stuff. This isn't all the time everything, right? It has to be, this is the way I am, this is the way I work. The other thing I like about where you said, write the stuff down as it happens, these accomplishments and even the challenges, because if you're one of those people that is uncomfortable bragging about yourself, it's a lot easier to just kind of have it in this written form as it happens than when you have to sit down and try to remember it all and you're already uncomfortable with bragging about yourself. If you don't brag about yourself, nobody else is going to brag about you, right? You got to get
your mom.
Yeah, unless it's your mom. All right, let's kind of flip things over a little bit. Let's talk about evaluating the employers. All right, we spent a lot of time talking about how you might be evaluated or what you need to do to be that person that gets hired, but what do we do? How do we evaluate employers? So, Rory, you brought this up. There's so many mergers and acquisitions going on. It's just this ever-changing landscape out there. And one of the concerns that I would have is I'm looking at someone that I can go to and learn and grow and be a part of, but how do I make sure that I'm doing that with an organization that's not going to change too much? They're all going to change, right? But not going to change too much in, let's say, again, the next 5 years, or does that even matter?
That's a very good question. There's a few tricky things here as well. That say, so this is candidates that are interviewing with organizations. One, organizations don't always know if they're gonna be acquired, because normally that's only the leadership team that knows about that. So you can't ask questions in that scenario. So in the scenario where they do know, like, one question that you could ask if you want to know how much turbulence is there going to be here in this company, you could always ask, like, what's the goal of the company? Is it to grow? Is it to acquire? Or is it to get acquired?
Be acquired.
Then at least you know, if it's none of those three, you're probably joining a stagnant organization, which you probably want to stay away from anyway. But it helps you manage your own expectations a bit. Questions that you could ask to make sure that you're still in the right organization that's not going to change too much. Change is inevitable, but it's the leaders that you work for. So you want to try and gauge if the people so say organization has just finished a merger or just finished an acquisition or getting acquired. You want to know, okay, you're interviewing me now. How long are you still going to be here? Like, I'll be working for you, or this leadership team will still be there. Will this still be? What's your plan? I've asked these interviews when I was still employed by employers, like, how long will you still be here? What's your goal? And then sometimes they tell me, oh, I've got equity, so I'm here for the long run. But that gave me an understanding, like, okay, this leader isn't going to go anywhere. Or you want to understand, like, is the company structure going to change too much? Because there's different results of acquisitions. Some companies, they get acquired, but they remain more autonomous and they keep their culture. Other ones, they get completely absorbed and they have to adapt to the new culture. So those would be the kind of questions you could ask around if you want to get that picture, like, okay, how much change is gonna happen here, if you're concerned. But if you're early in your career, I actually think there is some excitement in joining around these phases. Normally, if you get acquired, you're becoming a part of a bigger organization. Often, not always, but often that means more growth opportunities. So I think it's a good time. You just have to be always open to change. If you're not open to change, then it's going to be a challenging time.
I keep hearing the open to change, open to change. I just wanted to share very quickly. One of the people in our mentorship community told a story about how the reason she's doing what she's doing today is because she said yes to an opportunity that was presented to her that she didn't want to say yes to. She was just like, this isn't what I intended to do. This, but somebody told her, try it. You never know. And now that's what she does and she loves. So being open to change that is even change that you may not want isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? So,
Yes.
Rory, in that situation, let's kind of phrase, what do I want to say? Stage it that it's around a merger and acquisition type of situation. How long would you recommend, or do you have any thoughts on recommending how long someone gives something a try? So let's say they go to an organization, they didn't know it was going to be acquired, it gets acquired, they find out things are changing. Do you say to somebody, give it a certain amount of time, or because you're in, your job is to help people find other jobs. Do you just say, okay, jump ship, or do you, what would you recommend?
I would say give it a year. That will give you a good indication what's going to happen. Stay close to your leaders to understand what they're going to do. Are your leaders still happy, or are they not? Are they not happy with the direction that the company is moving into now? I did exactly that. I worked for a company that got acquired. I stayed very close to the leaders, and I could sense what their sentiment was.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, people quit leaders, not companies. Like, you work for a leader. You can work for the best company. If you've got a poor leader, you're still gonna leave. You work for an average company, but an amazing leader, you're gonna stay. So stay close to your leaders, understand what they want to do, and give it a year. Always give it the benefit of the doubt.
Right, because that early turmoil is not a good indication
Correct.
of what it's going to be like. Okay.
And there's always teething issues.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. Right. All right. So hot roles and emerging skills. We've touched on this a little bit, right, about how roles are changing, but where is the demand today? So Sevi, right now, from what you're seeing, what roles and skill sets, if someone walked up to you and say, I have these, you would be like all over them. What's in demand right now?
Before I answer that, I just want to add to the last question there.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
a question that you can ask yourself if you're ever struggling on like whether you should start looking or staying is, is where I'm at still serving like my goals? Because goals can always change year to year. And I'm not saying like jump at the last, like the most impulsive time, but if where you are staying is no longer serving you, right? You have to treat yourself as a CEO of your own company, your career. Like that is like your main objective at the end of the day. So just food for thought there. Something I always advise candidates, if they are even looking to leave, just kind of take another look at themselves and ask, like, is where I'm at actually good? Maybe like sleep on it, kind of like have that take place there. But yeah.
Yeah. So it's real quick, you made me think of something too, where you're looking at it, and I was talking about the Ben Franklin close, but it's like, okay, well, there's added stress here, but I still get unlimited PTO. So it's like, is that, right, exactly. Is that unlimited, is that stress worth the unlimited PTO, right? So again, is it serving me short-term and long-term? So yeah, very good point. All right. So what roles and skill sets would you say are most in demand right now?
Yeah. So when I speak with hiring managers, I think, yes, the AI enablement, being able to stay on top of AI and being AI first is always going to be a skill set that folks want their employees to be investing in.
Okay.
But to kind of take it a little bit further, I think being able to solve problems using the Dynamics platform and being able to communicate that to your stakeholders is a skill that I think a lot of people early on in their career need to be sharpening and continuing to develop. Yes, we talk about being a functional consultant. That's like always an in-demand role. We're seeing a lot on the manufacturing side or finance side, depending on which specialty you're looking to lean towards. Yes, on the Power Platform, as we've mentioned already, that's going to be a higher in-demand skill set to hone in. And we're also seeing more like cross-product experience as well, which has not always been the case in the ecosystem, being cross-product trained. So yeah, and then being able to, if you are working as a consultant, I think it's important to really sharpen that skill set of identifying, let's say you're getting to the end of the project, and being able to identify other areas of the business that can also be added as additional work. It's very, I think that is a skill that is only comes with reps, but being aware that if you can actually find additional work to do, whether for your team or for being able to upsell, essentially, knowing the key points of account management and upselling, I think that will help, one, make you more of a revenue producer when it comes to billable work, but also more valuable to the team overall as you are being able to maintain that account and then being customer facing.
It's interesting because you mentioned in different forms communication skills, and we talked about demonstrating those in LinkedIn, right? So, if you're putting stuff out there in LinkedIn because you're a recent graduate or don't have a lot of experience, you could demonstrate your ability to communicate complex concepts and thoughts in a way that others can easily consume by putting things out on LinkedIn. And that's one of the skill sets that's in demand. So we've got just we actually have 1 minute, but let's do this real quick. If you had to give, I'm going to start with Rory. Rory, one bit of advice for anyone considering a career change, what would it be?
Join a company that is doing projects, whether that's an end user or consulting. Be involved in projects because that's where the learning curve is the steepest.
And variety, right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Tanya?
I actually echo Rory, but also I think depending on what you're leaning towards, also tinkering under the hood, like as a support consultant, like understanding how to troubleshoot, asking good questions. You learn a lot of customer service in a support role kind of thing. So being able to talk to people and build those communication skills and really practice learning to ask good questions.
Excellent. And last but not least, Sevi.
I was just going to echo Tanya mentioned, like starting out a support role is a great way to really understand the business and how things go. You can always drive down being a support consultant, but it's a great starting point for anyone looking to break into the field, so to speak.
Yeah, so you can't necessarily start at the top, right? So be willing to put in the time. All right, last thing here, I just want to mention, we do, like I said, Dynamics user group, great community. There's a QR code there. And if you're interested in being a mentor, then here's a QR code for the application. And you can reach out to anyone on the Doug Mentorship Committee or put a comment in this meetup, and we will get back to you if you're interested in being a mentor. So again, I said we wouldn't go long. We went 1 minute. That's not too bad, is it? I appreciate everyone's time. It looks like we have a question. BJ, did you have a question? I can stay on for a minute or two here, if anyone else can.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Go ahead.
So yeah, there's one thing I've noticed, that there is a clearly defined space for functional and technical consultants, but there seems to be a limited visibility or demand for dedicated ERP project managers. Is this because the projects are structured to operate without a formal project manager role, or clients are increasingly preferring to manage the projects internally?
So I'll speak from my experience first. I know I'm not really one of the panelists, but so I spent many years as a business analyst / project manager. And it depends on, so this would be in the BC space. I have, and I think the rest of the group, it depends on how big the project is. A lot of times what happens is there's no budget for a project manager that's just a project manager. And then, and again, I'm speaking about BC. And then other times it is because it's being managed by the customer. And then other times it's because someone has a combination role at the partner. Or I noticed some of the middle-sized partners will have dedicated project managers, but they're project managers for multiple projects, like not just a dedicated project manager for each project. Sevi, Rory, Tanya, you want to add to that at all?
It might just be terminology too. So our project team wears two hats predominantly. They manage the projects, they manage the milestones and the tasks and the budget and the status reports, but they also deploy, for instance, a Power Platform solution, the CRM solution. They're deploying, so they're in there building and creating tables and things like that. So it might just be the terminology. We call them implementation consultants, but they're expected to lead project. We have different levels. We have juniors and seniors. So the juniors would be more of the business analyst, but they would be the doers, not managing the project, but they're training up to do the project management. So it could just be terminology, but we don't operate anything without a project manager around here. So,
but it's one person wearing that hat as well as the person doing the actual.
Yeah, right. And we have large and small projects, Cynthia. Okay. So, I mean, I do work with clients, some of the big banks. They have just dedicated project teams. So you still will see it. It's just maybe not all the partner side has that same structure, because it really depends on what the target audience is that they're working with and the size of the projects and the budgets.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It's definitely size and budget related.
Yeah.
Sevi, Rory?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot more dedicated PMs with an enterprise project, right, compared to the SMB mid-market in Business Central that we typically see in cloud-based ERP. But I mean, to your point though, a lot of these migrations do require a project manager. So it is not as of like that they don't have one. There is a project manager, it's just maybe, like to Tanya's point, labeled differently.
Yeah. I've got nothing to add to that. You guys said it all.
Okay. Vijay, does that answer your question?
Yeah, sure. That was pretty validating, as well as one last thing. Is there any valuable skills or certificates? Like, I'm a business center project manager, but somehow I'm thinking to upgrade my skill sets because of the lack of opportunities at the business center project manager space. So any suggestions on the certificates which I can pursue?
Anybody want to take that, or do you want me to?
If it's just for project management, you can look at the standard institutes like the PMI or the PMPs.
That's done. I'm looking for more on the Dynamics side.
Okay, so yeah, if you're looking at Business Central, I would start working with Microsoft Learn, and I would work towards my MB800. And it's not so much that the MB800 means that you're going to be able to do everything in Business Central, but it's like anything else that we were talking about. It's a commitment to continuous learning, and it will also make sure that it's validating your skills, at least in the area that Microsoft is seeing as what would constitute a functional consultant. So that would be one certification that you could pursue. Other than that, I think it's a matter of aligning yourself with an organization that's going to give you that opportunity to learn, the product, along with maybe doing some project management or something like that.
Sure. Sounds good. Thank you so much. That was pretty helpful.
All right. Any other questions?
Okay.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much to the panel. I really, really appreciate your being here. And hopefully if we ask for your help again, you'll say yes. I appreciate it. All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Right. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
Good luck.
All right. Happy day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.